On a map of global trade, one choke point dictates the movement of the world economy. In its normal state, the Strait of Hormuz processes tens of millions of barrels of oil every day, acting as the absolute center of global energy distribution. But the recent escalation of the US-Israel-Iran war has spilled off the land and choked off this specific shipping lane. The threat of drone strikes and seized vessels has turned the waterway into a hazard zone, forcing major commercial carriers to abandon the route entirely. This chart, based on U.S. Energy Information Administration data, shows the result. In early 2026, oil flows plummeted by nearly 30%. To see the raw deficit, output from affected Gulf countries has fallen 14.4 million barrels per day below pre-war levels. By closing this single 21-mile-wide waterway, the combatants instantly vacuumed energy out of the global supply chain. Behind those macroeconomic figures is a severe human reality on the ground. The World Health Organization is now tracking mass displacement on a staggering scale: 3.2 million people in Iran and over 1 million in Lebanon. Health infrastructure in these regions is collapsing. Hospitals are overwhelmed by trauma injuries and extreme overcrowding in collective shelters. Beyond the direct casualties of war, the conflict has severed the supply chain for essential medicines, leaving millions without access to insulin or chemotherapy drugs. Meanwhile, the fuel blockade is crippling the hospitals that remain, forcing doctors to rely on backup generators just to keep critical patients alive. Caught in the crossfire, millions of civilians are finding that chronic, manageable conditions have been transformed into acute, fatal threats. As the economic pressure mounts, the conflict is pulling in neutral neighbors. Countries like the UAE have had to publicly deny secret military meetings just to avoid becoming targets themselves. Maritime skirmishes are multiplying, with Iran now accusing Kuwait of unlawfully attacking and detaining its citizens in the Gulf. But the energy vacuum created by the blockade has reached far beyond the Middle East. In Cuba, the lack of diesel and fuel oil has plunged the island into its worst rolling blackouts in decades, effectively strangling the capital of power. This foreign energy crisis has triggered an immediate economic emergency in the United States. The U.S. Senate has rushed to confirm a new Federal Reserve chair as the administration scrambles to manage inflation and interest rates spiked by the oil shock. A local blockade in the Persian Gulf is now directly dictating daily survival in Havana and monetary policy in Washington. Facing this universal economic pain, world powers are realizing they must intervene to survive the fallout. President Donald Trump is currently on a state visit to Beijing, the first by a U.S. leader in 9 years. His objective is to leverage the U.S.-China relationship to pressure Iran into reopening the strait. While those talks happen in Beijing, a competing diplomatic front is meeting at the BRICS summit in New Delhi. There, the Iranian foreign minister is rallying the global South to condemn U.S. sanctions and what he calls imperialist bullying. The crisis suggests that as supply chains tighten, the era of the truly isolated war is ending. By closing a single waterway, the combatants force the world's major powers to immediately reorganize their diplomatic